Hello everybody, it's Fight Club Hubs. Welcome to another episode of GVN Live. With me is Jamelian, Gamer Keith, and Mark B. Writing. Welcome back, Keith. How you been?
I've been all right. Things are just a little tough at the second, and that real life that we actually have. But other than that, things are good. Things are really good.
Okay, so we're going to be keeping today's episode rather short, about an hour. Today's topic of conversation is actually going to be about, it's going to transition from talking about Castlevania, which is a anime that was based on a video game from like 25 years ago, and we're going to be talking about TV and cartoon adaptations of video games.
Excuse me, princess.
Exactly. Now, in the past, we have talked about numerous times movie adaptations.
Guys. Can we please talk about that one? That one's so horrible.
Yes, we will get to that. So,
okay.
In the past we've talked about movie adaptations. In fact, I think the most constant thing we've talked about is Tomb Raider, Mortal Kombat, and Silent Hill were the only good adaptations. Everything else sucked donkey balls, right?
I guess.
Yeah, okay.
For the most part, hit or miss.
Okay. So, starting off, we're going to be talking about the Castlevania 4 episode OVA that debuted on Netflix a couple of weeks ago. Me and Keith have seen the whole thing. Mark finally got around to seeing the first episode. Emily had stuff get in the way.
I know, I'm totally slacking, and then I finally found the time, and then suddenly I found myself going to Battlegrounds last night instead of watching it, so I'm sorry.
Listen, I didn't see that pay-per-view, but I read about that pay-per-view.
Oh my god, it was not as bad.
In my opinion, only 3 good matches were on the card.
I'm not going to sit here... Okay, I'm not going to sit here and say that it was the best pay-per-view, but it definitely, by all means, was not the worst. The way people are making it out to be. I don't know if that's just because I had surprisingly really good seats, better than I thought they were going to be, but it was not, sure, there were moments where I zoned off, but it wasn't.
Well, there you go.
Well, no, I'm saying it was a few moments. It wasn't. All in all, I would have to say I thought it was a good show. It wasn't a great show. It wasn't a fantastic show, but it also was not the worst WWE show I've ever seen. There were, like I said, there were people that told me, "Oh, I loved John Cena and Rusev." I was not a huge fan of that particular match. That was me. I was not a particular fan of it. However, and then there were certain parts that annoyed me about the Ginger and Randy.
Move on. I'm sure we can give you a show dedicated to wrestling.
I mean, you could totally give me a show dedicated to wrestling, and I will talk for the full hour and a half all about stuff going on in the wrestling world. So,
alrighty. But
yeah, it wasn't the best, but I didn't think it was the worst.
Speaking of wrestling, since we're not doing the whole let's talk about what we've been playing, can I just take 2 minutes to say,
yes,
go buy Fire Pro Wrestling on Steam for the PC?
I bought it.
I've had 5 people recently message me about that game, telling me I should get it.
You really should.
You need to get it.
Should.
Okay.
Right. They said it, the mechanics of it are not going to be for everyone. I love the Fire Pro series, but different people have different things that they love mechanically as far as wrestling goes. Some people are not Fire Pro is not their favorite franchise, and that's fine. But the way that this is structured is such that they have a Steam Workshop set up where you can download literally any wrestler who has ever existed at this point. Mm-hmm. I have 4 decades of fucking men's and women's wrestlers in a federation in that game that just, I can just set up automated matches against them. I can play the actual game against them, whatever. It's, for the amount of money that it costs, it is a steal.
It's a
So,
brilliant game.
Does this include WWE wrestlers as well? Like, were they involved in it?
Oh no, they were in no
no
way involved. But
No.
all of the maneuvers that you would expect and more exist in this game, and enough assets to create them exist in this game. So people have already uploaded John Cena, Rusev, the British Bulldogs, Vader, Sting, both different versions of him. Kevin Nash, both different versions of Hulk Hogan. Blah 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 blah. It's they have enough assets that they were able to make those characters. They were able to program the AI, and they were able to give them all of the moves that they would do, and have them exist in that game. It's amazing.
I'll definitely check it out.
Okay, so moving on, and again, just get Fire Pro Wrestling if you haven't done it yet. Let's talk a little bit about Castlevania. Castlevania the anime is a 4-part miniseries. I think that was not meant to go past 4 episodes, but they've announced a second season, so obviously it did something right. It's based...
Well, what makes you think that it would only be 4 episodes? I mean, they kind of... I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers, but...
But
don't
then you have to
spoil
realize...
anything.
You have to also
because
remember...
I want to watch it.
You also have to remember that there are, basic anime thing, especially if it's gaming related. Usually they'll have an ending that's very open ended and stuff like that. A lot of animes did that. Like, I mean, the first what was that vampire anime? Vampire Hunter D kind of had an open-ish ending at the very end. Not the crappy one, the good one. But in regards to the anime, I thought it did a lot of things really well. The introduction of a couple of key characters were really well done, and it's unfortunate that Emily hasn't seen a damn episode yet, because it'll make it hard to go spoiler-free.
I mean, I heard it was good.
Okay. Would you care if we spoiled at least the first episode? Because that'll at least give us a narrative to go by.
Basically, if you play Castlevania 3 and then just take it from there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, we'll start with the...
I will just wave to me when it's done, and I'll just,
You're gonna mute us, aren't you?
The chat down. I'm just gonna turn the chat down.
Okay. So, poor Emily is gonna have to sit out for a little bit. Mark, why don't you give us a quick narrative of the first episode?
I'm not even kidding. I don't want to be spoiled. So wait.
I don't see any. Like, I feel like we can talk in vaguely appropriate terms. It's if you've played Symphony of the Night and Castlevania 3, you are well aware conceptually of the conversations surrounding why Dracula is an awful piece of shit. Humanity murdered his wife, and he wants to kill us all because of it. Well, this episode goes into that. It actually characterizes Dracula in a way that makes him kind of sympathetic for the first time in probably all of the Castlevania franchise, gives him an actual narrative purpose for doing what he does, and gives him the best qualities that you would expect from a bad guy. A reason to believe that why he's doing what he's doing is theoretically the right thing to do, but also a proper understanding that what he is doing is morally and ethically the absolute worst possible decision. I mean, that's pretty much the majority of the first episode. It's bad things happen, and then Dracula loses his fucking mind. And it's like that's all you really need to know. Like, we don't need to spoil any of the particular events that associate with it. It's rocks fall, Dracula loses his fucking mind. And it's good, honestly. I feel like the characterization of Dracula as a spirit of vengeance rather than just this dude who wants to take over the world is a really good one. I feel like the Dracula character in general actually makes for a compelling antagonist, because you understand why he feels the way that he does, but you still don't necessarily want to see him win, even if the people he is indirectly opposed to are just the drizzling shits.
Mm-hmm.
And they essentially do what they need to do to set up the rest of the framework. The only thing I think that's kind of odd about it is that we're using Castlevania 3 as our stepping on point, which is interesting, but it's just very odd that, like, oh, all right.
I don't mean to interrupt, but you guys should totally know that as you're discussing this, I am watching the first episode of Castlevania because my TV is literally right in front of me. and I had it turned down, and I had my mic off, and Mike's like, "You should totally just put the Castlevania on right now." And
It's
I'm
like only 18 minutes long, I believe, the first episode.
Yeah, it's not very long.
In fact, you
whatsoever.
might even be done talking. By the time we're done, you should have the episode wrapped up. So go right ahead.
yeah, and then I could just give my opinion.
All right,
on what I
ladies and
think after
gentlemen,
the first
we are now
episode.
going to watch Emily
You're now going to
reacting
watch me
to the episode of
watch
Castlevania.
the first episode. All right, I'm sorry, Mark. Continue your.
Emily reacts to the first
No,
episode.
that's totally fine. That's totally fine. It's, as I said, it's. I feel like it's a really good piece of work. I feel like the characterization is good. The only thing that's weird to me specifically is that we're using Castlevania 3 as that stepping on point, just because, Castlevania 3 is probably older than a lot of the people who are going to be watching this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine from a, I'm coming into this blind, what do I need to know kind of perspective. And it's fine from a, a lot of people are going to come in knowing nothing about it perspective. It's just interesting to me that we are going back to a game that is, like almost 30 years old at this point, and that's where we're starting? Huh.
Well,
it's not what I would have thought of necessarily.
Well, if there's anything to go about it, I would say, with exception of, let's say, the handheld Castlevania games from the Game Boy Advance and onwards, and even possibly, to some degree, the Symphony of the Nights, I would say Castlevania 3 has actually a cast of characters that, travel along with Trevor Belmont to the point where you can actually make a cohesive story built around, let's say, 3 or 4 people in a party, which is usually a norm for most, which is pretty decent for most storytelling means, because you can definitely expand on the story, expand on the world and whatnot from that point on. Whereas, you have characters in, let's say, Symphony of the Nights, like Maria, who just come and go as they please. You have people like Alucard in the Game Boy Advance games and the DS games, who just comes and goes as he pleases. Not really any consistent party members or people who just tag along to make any kind of direct connection with the player or the main character. So,
well, I mean, if anything, like you said with the Symphony of the Night, the Alucard was pretty much the main character to it, and also with the Castlevania series at the beginning of the DS games, Alucard was the actual main character for it. So again, like you said, they were kind of taking from Castlevania 3 on a lot of different things for it, or it's following the Castlevania 3 storyline very closely, from what I can see.
yeah. So, yeah, ignore Dreamy
I was
Warrior.
about to say, apparently...
that has something to do with
that.
my Thursday show. So, hey, welcome aboard, Dreamy Warrior. But, yeah, I get what you're saying. Oh, another thing I want to say is the fact that I think it's an interesting choice to actually start the story off with at least a Belmont, as opposed to, all the later games in the franchise where, aside from the reboots, there's really no real connection to the Belmont clan, other than he's a descendant of a descendant of a descendant, or we're gonna play as Alucard, or some girl who has magic rings that combats evil and whatnot. But outside of that, what do you think? What else do you think about the aesthetics of just the anime itself, its production value, and how you think it might turn out? Mark, we'll start with Mark.
I mean, from an aesthetic perspective, it looks really good. I think it's really high quality. I'm honestly kind of surprised that they were able to dig up an animation studio on short notice to make those 4 episodes for them. But by the same token, I'm totally not surprised that they could only get 4 episodes done, considering all of the craziness surrounding anime production in Japan right now. On the whole, it looks good. I like the aesthetic. I feel like the animation house they picked was top-notch for producing the kind of aesthetic effect that they wanted, and it feels very reminiscent of the more recent Darkstalkers anime, which I feel is decidedly a compliment. It looks very dark, very gritty, very old world, and it really evokes the exact sort of theme and concept that you would want from that sort of thing. I think it's top shelf, and from an aesthetic perspective, I couldn't ask for anything more. And from a oral perspective, voice acting's all generally fine. The one thing that's frustrating is that I am told, and from what I have seen so far, confirms it, that they don't really use any of the known Castlevania music, instead going for the more obvious orchestral score. And while I get it from a presentation perspective, I feel like something is lost by not, like, getting Vampire Killer in there somewhere.
Okay. How about you, Keith? How do you feel about it, production-wise?
Production-wise, again, I'm very inclined to agree with Mark that it's very, very good style of it. It kind of feels like a reminiscent of, like, when they were making the PSP games, so to say, like that animation style for it, but it comes together very, very well for it. Voice acting, again, I don't have a problem with it. I really kind of like the development of the character of Trevor Belmont very well, so I kind of like how things are going with him. Again, I think that it's going in the right direction. And when you were saying, I didn't think that it was going to go past 4 episodes, it's like, well, they kind of left it very open-ended to where I would think that definitely I could see it more coming from it. I think overall, I'm pleased with it, and especially since Konami probably has not touched anything from it, that's the reason why it's good.
Yeah. Now, for me, I thought the voice acting was pretty decent for the most part. Nothing really bothered me or irked me. I mean, as I would have to say, though, when Netflix announced the series and they said that it would be a hard R, it was totally like a hard R and then some.
It's bloody.
I haven't seen an anime this. I mean, I don't really go out of my way to watch violent animes, especially the 90s animes, where that was pretty much just the purpose of watching an anime, was just see how well the animators can draw blood and guts and disembowelments and all that other fun stuff, and, pay little attention to the story. I was just really happy with the fact that they actually that with the 4 episodes, they were very consistent with good storytelling, good animation, not a whole lot of, the first episode, there was definitely quite a bit of it. You'll definitely see a bit of it in the second episode as well, Mark. The blood and guts and all that stuff. But it's very tame from what I was overly expecting, but it was still quite shocking what they showed off. How would you describe it, Mark? I mean, have you watched a whole lot of
I've seen worse
anime?
in Blood Sea. I've seen worse in Blood Sea. I've seen worse in Fist of the North Star.
I was about to say Fist of the North Star, definitely.
Yeah.
I've seen worse in Ninja Scroll. I've seen worse in lots of places. Like, the introductory sequence where, like, not like the very, very beginning, obviously, but the part where Dracula's minions come to collect is suitably violent for what you would expect. But I mean, like, that's kind of it, and I feel like they mostly shot their metaphorical load on that particular sequence, and even then, like, it's violent, but it's not gratuitous, which is kind of what I would want from Castlevania. Like, listen, I don't want Castlevania to be Blood Sea. I don't want rabbits with razor fingers skewering people like they're shish kebabs and then eating them one by one, or putting them into a bag, turning their hand into a blender and pureeing them. That's not what I came to Castlevania for.
Yeah.
I feel like the violence is sufficient enough to convey the gravity of the situation, but executed in a way that it is appropriately tasteful.
How about you, Keith?
Again, pretty much is that I've seen with this particular series that it's going in a good direction for it. It's pretty violent for it, but again, like you said, you're literally Dracula unleashing the minions of hell on everything. So I would expect this amount of violence on it. I was a little, like you said, shocked on how violent it actually was. I was like, okay, this actually could be really, really good. But overall, just enjoy it for what it is. And pretty much Mark's been hitting everything that I would really bring on to the head. So I'm going to let Mark talk for me at this moment.
So, well, I think it's actually time we transition on. I mean, as a whole, what would you say? So far, so good? Good at video game to TV, anime adaptation from both of you?
Oh, definitely.
You say a thing, Mark?
The simplest compliment I can give is my artist friend, Mr. J. Rose, is the biggest Castlevania nerd I know. If he didn't like it, like, I would have understood. He thought it was a well-done piece of work, and I can't think of a higher compliment than somebody who loves Castlevania that much saying, yeah, this is pretty good.
All right. So now with that, we're going to move on to our next topic of conversation, and that is adaptations of video games in both TV and anime, and anime and cartoons. Now, the thing about this thing is that we have video game adaptations starting back as far as the early 80s was something like what was it? Saturday Starcade with Donkey
God,
Kong
fucking Dragon's Lair and fucking Pac-Mania or whatever the fuck it was called.
and Donkey Kong, the earliest video games that we can think of, making it into a half-hour cartoon slot Saturday mornings in the early 80s, then followed up by, I think,
Super Mario Super Show.
well, you know what? I'm trying to think if there was something else that was a game. Oh yeah, Pitfall Harry and stuff like that also make it into games. But now, yeah, then I think there was like a whole gap of like non-video games being made into cartoons or TV shows or movies. I mean, we had ideas of stuff like Tron and stuff like that based on like the ideas of video games. But it wasn't until
Dragons.
Yeah, it wasn't until let's say, Super Mario Brothers Super Show came out with Lou Albano playing the star. Albano. I know I slurred.
I was gonna say Lou Albino. Really?
Yeah, but starring as Louis as Mario, with a weird hybrid live-action comedy segments mixed in with a 20-minute animated episode, and then every Friday it was an animated episode of The Legend of Zelda. Now, the Super Mario Bros. Super Show ran for 62 episodes. Legend of Zelda only had 13.
Yep.
I guess you could say Mario Bros. Super Show was kind of a success because from that point on, so many other things happened. There was Nintendo Power that came out, and that took the Power Team concept, which was a bunch of Acclaim games that suddenly became a superhero fighting force. Like Bigfoot, the guy from Iron Sword, a basketball player, and like it was and Quark Quark, the tomato guy thing, and then follow that up. You got Super Mario Brothers 3. You had Super Mario Land. You had Captain N, the Game Master, which took a bunch of random Nintendo franchises. Simon Belmont from Castlevania 2, Mega Man, Kid Icarus, the fucking Game Boy. We had all kinds of random. Yeah, Quark is from DS9, but there was, I think This Quark was spelled with a QWA or something like that. It was weird. We didn't get any like real live action cartoon or live action shows since the Super Mario Super Show. In fact, if we spring ahead just a little bit, after the success of Mortal Kombat the movie, which spawned not only an animated cartoon show on the USA Network, along with a bunch of other video game franchises like Street Fighter and Wing Commander Academy.
Ugh.
There was actually a live-action Mortal Kombat TV series that most people do not know about. In fact, the live-action show had very little, if anything, to do with the franchise in general because it had characters it didn't have any of the characters from the franchise in the show, from what I recall. It made no sense, and I think it lasted barely a season. Mark, maybe you can confirm that for me if you look it up real quick. And overall,
yeah, there are not a lot of live action Mortal Kombats, surprisingly enough. They've been trying with that for a couple of years now, actually.
Yeah.
The one that you're thinking of is Mortal Kombat Conquest.
Conquest,
was on 1998.
Yeah, and that was actually on, I believe that debuted on UPN and a late night slot, which was kind of weird. And I think
it was in the syndication in general.
Yeah, and then it was then the next live-action Mortal Kombat was that mini web series that came out on YouTube that was extremely violent.
Legacy, yes.
Yeah, back when it came out, when Mortal Kombat 9 first came out. Now,
well, that was they had actually done a pilot for that in an attempt to make it into a movie, which made the rounds on the internet like a year or two before that came out. The original pilot was designed in a way that was attempting to present Mortal Kombat as sort of a quasi-reboot deal where it was like a real-world type thing. So they had this whole thing where like Baraka was like just a guy, basically, who surgically implanted blades into his arms, and Scorpion was just like this like messed up dude with messed up eyes, but also like a serial killer or something to that effect. And it was kind of sort of positioned in a way such that it was meant to like be like a realistic take on it. And then the people who were in charge of it actually got permission to make a proper show, and then they just went and did Mortal Kombat with the same actors and actresses, including frickin' Michael Jai White as Jack Spriggs, which would have been like a major coup like 10 years prior, but now is just kind of like, oh, that's what you're doing now. Okay.
Now,
and Sonya Blade was Jerry Ryan, which again, 10 years. It's basically they said, hey, let's take this game from the 90s and put everybody who was relevant in the 90s into the show.
Now, if we look back at other adaptations, probably the most successful one besides Nintendo franchises would be the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons, in which that there have been 4 of them. We've had the Saturday Sonic AM cartoon series, which continued on in the now defunct Archie franchise of comics. You had the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog comedy show, and then you had out of nowhere, not a whole lot of people still know about this, but apparently it went on long enough that it had 2 seasons full of with a total of 60 episodes, which is Sonic Underground.
Yeah.
Dude, Sonic Underground was the shit, yo.
I mean, it was an interesting concept. It was definitely original. They took the idea of Sonic the Hedgehog and they did something very different and unique with it, which I have to applaud them with. I didn't watch a lot of episodes. I think I maybe saw 1 and I just thought it was weird. But I still applaud them for their ingenuity. And then, of course, you had the Sonic X anime series, which I believe went on for about 2 seasons as well, about 50 episodes or so, which is pretty standard for some anime over there lasting at least 1 or 2 seasons. Now, you also had Nintendo, who again tried their hand with a little bit more control over their franchises. We had a really, 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 really shitty Donkey Kong cartoon.
Yeah, when they released Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah. And this was late 90s. They had a Kirby anime, which I don't know what the public reception to that was.
It wasn't that bad. I mean, the one that was on Fox you're talking about, right?
I believe so. Outside of that, I don't think there was any other anime or cartoon series from Nintendo or Nintendo property since. I heard rumors that they were going to try and do another Mario series, but I think that fell through. Other franchises that some people probably don't know about, believe it or not, Digimon is actually based on a type of Tamagotchi type of thing from the 90s. You had what's that Tecmo game? Monster Rancher. Yes.
Yes.
You had a whole bunch of stuff that mostly was coming from Japan in the form of anime. You had, of course, movies like the Fatal Fury franchise trilogy. You had the Street Fighter II V series, which, to be honest, is a little bit better than the Street Fighter II USA cartoon series in every conceivable way, even though I think 2V was garbage. In the end, it just seems like cartoons in general are just all over the place. And no, I did mention Captain N earlier in the show.
Yes.
What else can I... you know what? It just seems like since lately, I have not really been paying attention to a whole lot of anything. I mean, I'll hear maybe, they're going to make a video game cartoon franchise just to pretty much tie in with the game, like anything new or relevant that comes out recently. Like, didn't they have a Klonoa anime series? I do not remember. I think they might have. Anybody want to confirm for me?
They might have had it in Japan. I do not recall it being a America thing as such.
Yeah. You know what? The biggest thing I actually completely forgot. The fucking Mega Man cartoon series.
Ah, yes.
Super Fighting Robot.
So... I thought you were talking about the one that they used for the intro to Japanese culture for the longest of times.
Yeah. Actually, there's a very interesting bit of trivia. There was actually when Capcom was approached for doing a cartoon show, 2 forms of the cartoon was presented to them in 2 pilots. One was anime, one was definitely geared more towards like an American Western audience, and guess which one got picked out?
The one that was geared toward the Western audience.
Yeah, absolutely, because apparently the one there's actually a 3-episode OVA based on Mega Man 5, where Mega Man comes into the real world with Dr. Wily and all the robots. You can find that on YouTube very easily. That's kind of what the vein of what the original pitch for Mega Man was supposed to be. And now there is mention of another Mega Man series that is coming along with a Mega Man movie now that I'm hearing. So it's all kinds of weirdness that's going on. So let's start with you, Keith, about... Well, okay, here's the first consensus. Majority of these video game adaptations suck balls. Why do you think that is?
It's because the thing is, as a nerd and as us collective nerds, is that we put a lot of thought and time into the actual stories for them and actually enjoyed the games and everything along those lines. So you have this plethora of information, so to say, right in front of you, like all these great stories that you can just pick one from and actually make a cartoon series out of it and kind of expand onto it. However, that isn't going to make very, very good television because you got to throw silly shit into it so you can kind of grab things off guard, or it wouldn't be very, very long or anything to that extent or nature for it. I think that they were just trying to popularize more so on the namesake for it. So when you had things like the Mega Man series, or if you had things like what the hell is that other one that I was just thinking about? God damn it! Or even things like Captain N, or even The Legend of Zelda. I mean, The Legend of Zelda one, like, what the hell was going on with that? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, it's cheesily awesome, don't get me wrong. I enjoy it now for face value, that it's a freaking monstrous piece of crap, but I still really freaking found it hilarious, nonetheless.
Okay. Now, here's another question, and I'll give this one to you, Keith, and then Mark can take over with the previous question as well. With stuff, let's say, like Darkstalkers and Street Fighter V and Wing Commander, and even those are franchises that have very rich lore, history, a lot of story elements to it. Why is it that those cartoon series went wrong with all that information compared to, let's say, Super Mario Bros. Super Show, which all it had was, okay, Mario goes from left to right and jumps over Bowser?
Well, pretty much with the things like Street Fighter. I mean, I'm not sure which Street Fighter in particular you're was there only the one Street Fighter anime that they, like, kind of
There were, like,
mainstream?
5 different Street Fighter cartoons in various capacities or another. There was
they
a
had
Street
one
Fighter
for
animated movie that featured Chun-Li's tits. There was Street Fighter V, which was some kind of weird reinterpretation of the events of Street Fighter 1 somehow. There was the American Street Fighter cartoon. There's been a lot of Street Fighter cartoons.
Well, pretty much is the one that I'm thinking of is like...
Are you talking about the USA one where Guile is the main character?
No,
because
the one where it's actually Ken and actual Ryu for it, but they kind of focused on, even though I really enjoyed it, and especially in retrospect, I really enjoyed it. That would be
Street Fighter 2V then, because those are the main characters in that anime series, and they go through like a journey of learning how to fight and stuff like that and compete with other people. They get their ass kicked by Guile in like the first episode and stuff like that. That's probably what you're thinking of, right?
Yeah, that's exactly the one I was actually thinking of. Pretty much is, I think that it just didn't really... I don't know. I kind of like that one, to be honest with you. I think it just didn't do the... Like, one thing that was my nagging feeling, and I was actually talking to... this was a while ago, mind you. I was talking to our mutual friend Reggie about this. That, like, the first few episodes was nothing but like Ken Masters being a spoiled bastard. Like, it was like, oh, let's just go here. Oh, here's money. Throw it away, sort of thing.
I came in right when I heard Ken Masters being a bastard. That is the very first thing I heard when I turned the volume back.
Well, if you think about it, in that show, is that literally was just about him being rich.
What you guys are talking about
the question I asked both of the guys, and we're gonna get Mark's answer next, is why did the majority of these adaptations suck? With all like the recent, like the ones like Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat and Wing Commander, they have all this lore in the franchise, story in the franchise, all these developed characters. How do the cartoon shows or TV shows miss the mark? Whereas something like, especially compared to like Super Mario Bros. Super Show, where they just had nothing really going on story-wise, but they made something out of it.
Well, how about we do this? We let Keith finish his thought.
Yeah.
Then we go to Emily for her impressions of Castlevania now that it's fresh in her mind. And then we come back to me, and I'll give my thoughts, because I guarantee you I'm going to talk the longest out of everyone.
Absolutely.
About what?
The question that he just recapped.
Because
Mark,
why did so many of these adaptations suck? basically.
Oh yeah. Mark will probably go on forever. about
And
this.
and as far as Mario is, that Mario really didn't have a lore. Mario really didn't have a set story to it. Like literally, all you knew was that there was this guy. He went into different sewers and he went down warp pipes and he's in the Mushroom Kingdom. Bam, there you are. So I think that they were kind of again just trying to make money off of it. I think what that really was, but. I think they were more trying to cash in on just the cheesiness of it as well. I mean, for God's sakes, they had Moon Zappa on an episode, so there you go.
Okay, so thank you for your thoughts, Keith, on that. We'll come back to Mark in just a minute. Emily, fresh off your mind, tell us
Rob.
episode 1 of Castlevania.
All right. Well, I heard the show was gory. So at first, when they were burning her at the stake, I was half expecting to see skin peeling from her face, and I didn't. So, as someone who is a horror fan, I was disappointed in that. But I realize that's not what you guys are looking for from me. First impressions.
Well, we did talk about the gore, so you can definitely splooge on that too if you like.
Oh, I'll get to it.
Yeah.
I'll get to it. I will get to it.
Mhm.
But
We felt it was tasteful.
it looked so delicious.
Not that kind of tasteful.
I was being sarcastic. I mean, I was
Listen,
definitely.
listen.
Hey,
I don't
sort
know
of
what your
agree.
diet is like, and I don't want to make any judgments.
I mean, my diet is these. You can't see them, but it's literally nachos with. It's literally tortilla chips, cheese, sour cream, and pieces of chicken that I created from random things at Giant for my dinner tonight. So that's
Listen, I ain't mad at that.
what
I ain't mad at that. That sounds delicious.
I know, right? Like I said, I was being sarcastic about it being delicious. I only state that because not that long ago I was watching intestines and shit fall on the ground. So lots of blood splattering everywhere and all that fun jazz. First impressions. Well, I liked where the first episode went, so I'm certainly interested in watching the second. It kind of makes me want to go back and play some of the Castlevania games, just because it's been a while since I've played. I guess this goes hand in hand with what we're discussing in regards to video games being adapted into like shows and movies and stuff like that. But so far, can you hear
Yep.
him in the other room?
Or no, I
Okay.
don't hear anybody.
You don't hear him.
No.
Nope.
Okay, he's on the phone and yeah. Okay.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay. The reason I want to go back and play some of the video games is because I want to kind of compare it, I guess, to the show, because that's what I like doing. But from so far, what I've watched, it seems to remind me a lot of the video game enough that I want to play it. And I guess that kind of goes along with that I want to play it again. I guess that kind of goes along with the whole topic of like doing adaptations and movies and TV shows, right? I'm not sure that I can give a full-fledged opinion without watching the whole thing, because I'm still kind of sitting here like thinking about it, and I'm trying to like compare it to the game, and I haven't played in a while, and I have the game, so like I'm like half tempted to like pull it out and start playing it playing it right now again. I guess what I can say is so far I do like it. So far I am pleased with the adaptation,
All right.
whatever the storyline they are creating so far. I do like the graphics a lot. I wasn't, it's kind of weird. It's got kind of a little bit of like a older feel to it.
Like a
the
throwback
older-
to 90s anime, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know what it kind of reminded me of? And I know that you are all guys, but I know at some point you have watched Disney princess movies.
What? No.
I did not
You-
know that was a thing that existed.
I was about to
You've
say I
ne-
didn't even know this was a thing.
I know that they made that live action show about the kids of the Disney characters in high school.
Oh my gosh, I know you guys have seen, at least one of you has seen Sleeping Beauty.
That's what
Oh,
she
you mean
means.
Disney princesses in general? Yes, I've seen Disney.
I know you
Well, of
guys have
course.
seen Disney
I've seen
movies. Come
many.
on.
I've seen
Alright.
many different Disney princesses in
Of
general.
course.
Yeah, see, Dreamy Warriors got it right. See, exactly. List all of them. I know you guys have seen it. No.
Well, it's just the
So,
thing that you said sounded like it was its own independent show rather than
Yeah.
just
no,
talking
no,
about the
no.
Disney
Yeah.
princesses as a
I
thing.
was proving, I was saying that I know you guys have all seen, and Sleeping Beauty is considered a princess, a Disney princess. So,
Well, Princess Leia is considered a Disney princess at this point.
oh my
Yep.
God, well, okay, I'm talking about like
I
classic.
get we get where you're going. It's fine.
Okay. Some of the graphics remind me of the graphics from that movie, kind of like almost like the still animation. But do you know what I'm talking about?
Like
Unless
it's reminiscent of the '80s style of artwork that they used for that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but at the same
yeah,
time.
exactly. But what I also like about it though is they put like modern touches of that, like modern touches of animation into it at the same time. So they almost kind of did like a combination, and I really kind of like what they did visually with it. Obviously, there's a whole lot more to it, and I've heard it gets a lot more graphic. But so if it gets more graphic than that, that'll be interesting. But I did want to at least mention the fact that I actually really like the animation. I think they did a really good job with the animation, and that's a good thing considering the fact that I know at some point when I was not here that you guys had a conversation about that Zelda adaptation.
No, we actually haven't talked about that
You
so
haven't
much
gotten
yet.
to the terrible. Okay, so I guess this goes along, like I said, in combination with the topic, but yeah, that is probably one of the adaptations I hate the most. It's so bad. It's entertainingly funny to watch, and I just sit there and I laugh at it. And I say to myself, how could you have botched The Legend of Zelda so badly in an adaptation? So I praise so far.
Keith, you ready?
So
Well,
far.
Excuse me, princess.
God, that's one of the worst lines.
Do you have a problem with short girls?
And he says it like every other freaking sentence. Oh my God! Stop.
I think Mark hates us for doing that.
I'm not mad. I'm just
I'm
disappointed.
It's
I'm
so
just
bad.
disappointed.
So honestly, I praise the guys who have made Castlevania.
Hey, Mark,
so
I
far.
think you need to add a face palm animation to your guy for
I don't know
moments
if
like
Joel still
that.
has all the
It's
animation.
not.
so.
The funny thing is, it's not just the writing. I mean, Lord knows the writing in that show was terrible. So far, I'm actually pleased with the writing in Castlevania. So far, they're not saying, "Well, excuse me," every like 2 fucking seconds, but it wasn't just that. It was the graphics. I mean, do I need to remind anybody the graphics of that
Budget
show?
animation, yay!
Oh my God, it was so bad. So like I said, graphics on top of
We made Lola happy, apparently.
To be fair, she hangs out with me, so we know she's easily amused.
Oh, that's
Okay.
ow. Hi, Lola.
Man.
Listen,
all right.
listen.
Okay. Like
You
I was
hang
saying,
out with me, so you know it to be true.
That is true.
so I'm not completely sure how I feel about the whole series yet in general, but I am impressed so far with certain things like the graphics, and I like the writing so far. I like the horror-esque feel to it. I like that they're not dumbing it down. I think that we've seen sometimes in adaptations where they will take video games that are clearly violent and will try to dumb it down a little bit to try to adhere to the
Double
younger
Dragon, anyone?
try to appeal to the younger generation, but in the process of dumbing that down and not being realistic, it kind of ruins the whole entire show and point of said game or whatever. So pleased with the graphics so far. Pleased with all that. I like the fact that they didn't dumb it down. I can give a much better opinion once I watch all 4 episodes and have time to sit with it. But as of right now, I dig it.
Can I? And I don't really mean this as to make fun of you or anything, but can I just take a moment? Can I just take a moment to just acknowledge that Emily is so much of a gamer that she is referring to animation as graphics.
Yes. I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to be rude.
You are a pure and wonderful entity in this world, Emily. Never change. I legitimately mean that. But
are you making fun of me?
I am legitimately not making fun of you.
It is the sweetest thing he has ever said.
I think that is legitimately wonderful, and I never want you to stop doing it ever.
Okay, so
to address the
previous question,
I feel like the core problem with Adaptations is a combination of a gross misunderstanding of the subject matter and let's be clear, these are not mutually exclusive concepts, taking a property which has no significant mythos and attempting to establish mythos for it. And this is an omnipresent issue, whether it be anime or Americanized properties. Though, let's be clear, American entities are 9 times out of 10 in the realm of video games far, far worse. Now, more modern stuff that you get that starts seeing licenses is going to actually have a wealth of mythology to draw off of. Mega Man was a robot who killed other robots because the guy who was in charge of everything, Dr. Wily, turned them evil. There's no real dialogue, there's no real narrative structure to it. You really kind of have to build that into something. Not only that, you have to build that into a 26-episode season of television. Super Mario Brothers was ostensibly about a plumber who was trying to save a princess who lived in a kingdom full of mushroom dudes from a dragon. The only dialogue that you really had was Princess Peach thanking Mario for saving her and, "Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle." So from a material perspective, you've got nothing to go with. Even Zelda, the original Zelda, which is a game I appreciate and enjoy, is Link is trying to save Princess Zelda from Ganon, which is like a pig wizard. You're not going to make a 26-episode television show out of that. You're just not. You need to embellish. So, from a material perspective, this is why, in terms of trying to flesh stuff out, you get these things that were made into Saturday morning cartoons because you have enough mythos to carry a game. You don't have enough to carry 13 hours of television, and then the possibility of a sequel. So that's where your mythos comes from. The gross misunderstanding part, that's almost entirely an American audience problem, though let's be clear, as Dreamy Warrior mentioned in the comments earlier, that Fatal Fury movie was also the drizzling fucking shit.
Well, we got to see Mai's tits for half a second.
Listen, Mai Shiranui is like the 15th most important character in the Fatal Fury franchise. I like Mai both as a playable character and as, as fan service, but
I like Mai, but it has nothing to do with her big tits.
Right, exactly. There's like, listen, if you want to make an eroge,
she's one of my.
No, we believe you. I actually like her as a character too, but
some versions of her are a good character. Some.
I mean, I won't lie. There's definitely times I've been playing people like in KOF and older games, and I might have popped off a little bit and said, I'm gonna smack you with my big tit, but I mean. It was all
Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
That was a thing I heard with my... I will acknowledge that as a thing that I heard with my ears.
Yep.
It was a thing that you heard with your ears. You guys haven't played me yet in KOF, so you just don't know. If I get really, really heated in the middle of something and I'm like in the mood to pop off, I might say some vulgar things, but it's all in good fun.
But...
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just like if you wanted to make an eroge based around Fatal Fury, like, listen, I'm not going to stop you from doing that. I am not ashamed to admit that I like eroge as much as the next guy, unless the next guy happens to like it more than me. In which case, tell him to fucking bathe. But Fatal Fury is a fighting game anime. And, like, this is the thing. The Japanese generally tend to have a better understanding of the material as it relates to the Japanese video games because, it came from their country and they have a better understanding of what went into it. So that's why you get Street Fighter II, the animated movie, which was a little light on the plot overall, but was a respectful take on what Street Fighter needed to be. Or the Darkstalkers 4-episode OVA, which gave Darkstalkers as a franchise way more attention than Capcom ever has, and was an astonishingly good piece of cinema, all things considered, about, a franchise that's basically featuring monsters fighting each other.
Wait, wasn't the US version just as respectful? I think I broke Mark.
But on the other hand...
He's just going to ignore me.
Listen, I have standards.
Oh.
Here we go again.
So,
look, the fact that they managed to mess up so many fighting game adaptations is beyond me. And there's already storylines there. But what's really funny is they're planning on making more in the future. I think they're redoing Mortal Kombat.
Well, we talked about like the 3 different live action versions of it, and I didn't hate.
They're making another one. It's coming out in the future.
I would not be surprised. And again, Street Fighter 2V, I didn't necessarily hate. I thought it was an interesting reinterpretation, and if you're going to put a story to the events of the original Street Fighter / Street Fighter 2, it was as good an attempt as any. The Guilty Gear games basically count as their own anime at this point, so they're doing fine with that, etc. The Mega Man anime was generally fine. The Sonic anime, even the modern one, which is mostly comedic, is honestly pretty amusing. I don't hate it. Here's the thing. American adaptations not only attempted to fill in storyline, but they were created by people who didn't understand the material, had no respect for the material, and just said, kids are going to watch whatever this shit is because it's based on their favorite video games. So
correct.
You're getting into a situation where you've got Billy and Jimmy Lee, 2 guys who live in a post-apocalyptic world where their girlfriend has been kidnapped by a gang of thugs and they need to go save her, and somehow it gets turned into a thing where there's a dude with a literal fucking rocket arm. Somehow. You've got a plumber who saves a princess in a mushroom kingdom from a dinosaur, gets turned into Lou Albano living in somebody's basement. You take a blue hedgehog fights to save his woodland creature friends from a robot maker who is turning woodland creatures into violent robots, and you get Urkel talking about fucking chili dogs.
Oddly enough, though, I have to say the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons are probably the only decent adaptations from...
No, they're the only entertaining.
No.
Entertaining.
I wouldn't call them
Sonic AM one.
Go ahead, Emily.
It's not Sonic related, but it is a TV show adaptation that I feel is really important that's brought up because it's one of the longest standing TV shows still on today, and it is an adaptation. So I want to bring it up, but I'll wait till you're done.
Don't say Pokemon.
I am going to say Pokemon.
No.
Pokemon is fine.
It is a game adaptation. It was because after the game came out and they found it was really popular, the first one in Japan, they created the TV show.
Yeah, and you know what? Pokemon's an anime is fine.
It is based on a video game, and it still is on today. So my question is, I am posing a question. What do you think they did right that these other companies aren't doing?
They respect the material. Take any of the cartoons from the 80s and 90s. And pick one. Any of them. Doesn't fucking matter. Super Mario Brothers had no respect for its source material. It didn't understand its source material. It didn't want to understand its source material. It just said, oh, a plumber who fights a dinosaur. Well, fuck it. Let's make it like every Hanna-Barbera cartoon from the 1980s, and that will be fine. Take Street Fighter, which was based on the goddamn movie. I'm not even going to say any more about that. Fuck it. Take Darkstalkers, where Felicia is made into the main character and drafts like a 10-year-old nerd kid into a magical war against Dmitry Maximov and Morgan Ainslet, who somehow both work for Pyron now, despite the fact that that is literally the exact opposite of the entirety of the narrative of this fucking franchise. They don't care. They never cared. They didn't respect it. And if you want a prime example of people making stuff that they had zero respect for, look no further than Captain N, the fucking Game Master.
Mother Brain will get
You take this jock dipshit and you drag him into the world where he wants to basically bone this magical princess who exists solely as the concept of Nintendo. The concept of Nintendo as an entity is represented as a fuckable redhead. All right, fine. So then we take the characters that he is paired up with. Kid Icarus, who has the second most annoying voice in that goddamn show, which, Jesus Christ.
Mega Man, who sounds like he smoked one too many cigarettes.
Mega Man, who has the most annoying voice in that goddamn show and constantly says Mega.
Mega High!
And is fucking green. How do you fuck up the basic color scheme of goddamn Mega Man? And Simon Belmont, which, listen, fuck everything about that goddamn Simon Belmont. Just fuck everything about it. And you put them up against Mother Brain, Eggplant Wizard, and King Hippo. King Hippo is a fucking villain in this.
Hey, don't forget Donkey Kong and the Dragon and the Dragon Master are in there too from Dragon Warrior.
That show was so bad that it not only grossly misunderstood the idea of what Simon Belmont was supposed to be. When it made an episode around the idea of Castlevania 3, it turned Alucard into a fucking skater dude and then had him do a heel turn. That's why none of that shit.
I'm like laughing at both you and the chat right now.
The chat's pretty lively, so yeah, feel free to ask us stuff too.
Well, it was partly me. I got them on the whole Pokemon kick.
Oh.
And
Okay.
it's just like they had no respect for the material that they were dealing with. Lola's texting me and asking if we can get a Mario Kart cartoon that's basically like Wacky Races, and you know what? I would watch that. That's fair.
I totally
I was
would.
about to say, unfortunately,
As
I
long
would
as they get
watch
the
that.
same announcer to do the cartoon as from Wacky Racers, then I will definitely watch it.
Yeah, but it's they didn't respect the material that they were making. They just wanted to make a dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, there's a Twitch, I'm sorry, not Twitch, Twitter account that I've been following for the past couple of weeks now that has just been consistently making fun of all of these, generally specifically video game related shows that came from the 80s and the 90s, called SF Cartoon Screens, literally at SF Toon Screens. They're presently talking about the Mortal Kombat cartoon, which is just fucking amazing. But I got on board when they were talking about the Darkstalkers cartoon. And it's just amazing being reminded of just how fucking bad all of these were. Oh my god. Like, nobody cared. They just wanted to make money off of it. They just wanted to make a buck. And say what you will about Japan, they give a shit. Because, like, this is their thing. So that's why Pokemon is awesome. That's why, dare I say it, for a while, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was awesome. Because they give a shit and they wanted to make something good because it was something that came from them and was part of their culture.
All right, so let's go and ask another question real quick. Moving on, because, yeah, obviously, you pretty much hit it all on the head. How about from each of you, let's name a TV or cartoon series adaptation that you think hit it out of the ballpark and actually got it right, even if it wasn't, let's say, the best thing ever. We'll start with you, Emily.
I already told you I thought Pokemon did a good job
Besides
with that.
Pokemon.
Well, that's not fair. All right.
I was actually surprised we managed to go 55 minutes without mentioning Pokemon in this entire conversation.
Boy, see.
Pokemon is the thing that exists in the world and is popular.
But see, you should have known that at some point I was gonna bring it up, considering I've played and own every single game. I mean, you just should have known I would have brought it up at some point. I used to watch the show when I was a kid. I was very, very much one of those people when I was younger. I still am. I just try to tone it down a little bit.
Hey, you Pikachu! I choose you. Go.
Like I said, I still am. I just try to tone it down a little bit compared to, you know, how I Used to be. Let's see.
I love the dramatic lighting effects that are going on in your house, by the way.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to know why that's happening?
It's from your TV.
I have Netflix up, but when you don't like use Netflix for a period of time, it shifts through different like ads and like things. Like right now it's saying Netflix original House of Cards and showing them and like the still shot and they're moving, and then in a couple seconds it'll switch again. See? Did you the light just got dark and lit up again, and now it's showing Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. So yeah, I try to keep you guys entertained. I don't know. I actually just really happen to think Pokemon was a great adaptation.
All right,
so
how about you, Keith?
I don't know.
I'm going to throw this out of left field on this one, and I just enjoyed it for what it was. The Devil May Cry anime. I thought that was pretty
I
good.
forgot about that one.
I actually forgot about it too, but I never saw it.
Well,
See,
the thing
I
is,
did. I don't know how I forgot about that.
the thing is with the Devil May Cry anime is that it had so much to go for it, and I thought that the story was pretty decent for it. It was kind of like Dante in his earlier years, so to say, for it, and I just liked his interactions and his mannerisms and everything along those lines. So that was probably one of my more favorite video game adaptations.
Okay, how about you, Mark?
I said Darkstalkers originally because I feel like it legitimately hit the nail on the head. I feel like it's an absolutely perfect adaptation of its source material and gets across the exact narrative that it needs to get across in a way that is respectful and actually does a really good job of putting together what needs to be done for a fighting game's narrative to actually make sense. I'm also going to say that for the most part, I would also probably say the original Street Fighter.
The
Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, excuse me.
okay. The animated movie was pretty good. Now, okay, let's make this a little bit harder on you guys because you all picked picked animes. How about we talk about your favorite Western adaptation? We'll start with you, Mark.
I'm like dying over here.
That's
Please don't die,
okay.
Emily.
We have video evidence.
Please don't die, Emily.
I'm trying not to.
Yeah, I'd hate to have your boyfriend come and clean up that mess.
Yeah, all on live stream and everything. That'd be
Yeah.
unpleasant.
Don't horrify the
ratings
children,
are
please. Think of the children, will you?
All these children watching, yes.
If we're talking about like pure adaptations, I would say the original Dragon's Lair cartoon. Because none of them have been particularly good that I can think of off the top of my head. But at the very least, that one was consistent. Sonic Underground, I also thought was pretty good for what it was trying to be. I feel like it took the concept of what Sonic the Hedgehog was supposed to be and kind of... Maybe it wasn't Sonic Underground. I'm trying to remember. There was one of them that was like really good. I think it might have been Sonic Underground.
Sonic
was,
Underground is the one where Sonic has siblings and they battle Robotnik with the power of music.
There was one, I don't remember which one it was, that was like really like dystopian, that was really interesting, and I thought was pretty good. No, I think it might have just been Sonic the Hedgehog.
Mm-hmm.
It was like kind of this Yeah, it was Sonic the Hedgehog. It was a dystopian future where it's kind of based in the same continuity as the Archie comics.
Yeah, that one.
Was,
that's a Saturday.
But was actually good.
Saturday
was actually
AM
good.
cartoon.
Yeah, that one I feel actually took the idea of what Sonic the Hedgehog was about and converted it into a thing that could be legitimately presented as an interesting take on that. So yeah, like that's I would also go with that one. If you can look that one up and watch it, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Now, if I were to pick anything, I would say the Saturday AM Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, but because I don't give a shits and it was entertaining to me as a kid, I'm gonna have to say the Super Mario Bros. Super Show because it was stupid fun. And yeah, that's just me.
I enjoyed some of the Mega Man.
I enjoyed some of the Mega Man.
I enjoyed some of the Mega Man.
Mega Man.
I enjoyed some of the Mega Man. some of the Mega Man episodes. I watched them.
I honestly
a lot
had
when
a
I
hard
was a
time
kid.
watching that when I was younger because pretty much to me it was rinse repeat, same thing. Mega Man fights robots from Wily's harebrained scheme. Insert 900 one-liners throughout the entire episode, and then rinse repeat
Mega,
for another
mega.
episode. All right, so we're practically coming to an end. Anybody have any final thoughts on the gaming adaptations? Shall we start with you, Emily?
Sure.
Mhm.
I think that
Maybe some word of advice for future animators out there who want to make a adaptation.
well, see, that's what. All right, so I think because I'm trying to think of how to word this. There was a period of time that I think all of us remember because we were kids at this time, where they tried desperately to adapt video games into TV shows, and a lot of what we got was, what you see in, The Legend of Zelda. Those adaptations. Well, no, because I'm making a point that a lot of them sucked. A lot of them weren't good adaptations, and that is one reason why, as much as I know a lot of you hated it, I brought up Pokemon because that is one that was created around that time when it was popular to make video games and adapt video games into TV shows, and that is I'm pretty sure the only one made around that time that still is on TV today that is still very popular. And I think that part of the reason they are successful is, I agree, they kept to the lore. They didn't really you got Pokemon merchandise everywhere. Sometimes I just walk into a store and there's like a Pokemon, there's like a Pikachu. I walked in a comic book shop the other day, there was a stuffed animal Pikachu. There's like no Pokemon comics in there, but there was a stuffed animal Pikachu. Obviously, yeah, obviously Pokemon has invaded the world in more ways than one without actually physically being here. Look at Pokemon Go. So
And there it is.
leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Yeah, let's not talk about Pokemon
I
Go
still
right now.
play Pokemon Go.
After this past weekend, let's not talk Pokemon Go right now.
Did something happen this last week?
They ran a Pokemon Go fest and it literally didn't work the whole day.
There was a
In
oh
Chicago, yes.
I didn't know. I wasn't
Yeah, it was a huge fucking disaster.
yeah. Well, they should have thought about what their servers would have done in that moment. But I didn't know about that. I'll have to look that up. But my point is, I would suggest that people focus more on what it is that made these video games popular in the first place. Really take a good look at their storylines and make sure that you're recreating what it is. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself properly here, because you don't have to follow the exact storyline to make it feel like it's the game, if that makes sense at all. Look at Castlevania. I'm pretty sure that's not following a direct storyline from the games, but it's taking elements, obviously, from the games and creating a TV show about it, and so far it's working. So I just think there needs to be more focus on what made these video games and their storylines and their characters popular in the first place, and making sure when you're turning that into a TV show or a movie or any of that, that not only are you doing it in the right way, but secondly, please
How many pleases?
have somebody who knows how to write it. Because I'm being legit serious. I've seen a lot of adaptations.
I believe you.
I've seen a lot of adaptations fail just because the writing is so horrible. Well, excuse me, Princess. That's a really good example.
Hey, that was comedy gold.
It was horrible. It was horrible writing. Last time I checked,
And very sexist for that matter.
But yeah, like last time I checked, Link does not talk that way.
Doesn't talk at
Zelda
all.
I know, but if he did, he would not talk that way to Zelda. I never got that impression.
I wait
when-
for the day that a Zelda
I
game
did
comes out
not
where Link
forget his
talks,
eye
and those are the
rolling.
first two
He-
words out of his mouth. First three words.
I did not forget his eye rolling. He eye rolls all the time. Yeah, eye rolls and excuse me, princess. Those two things.
Not to mention he's a giant sexual harassment case.
Oh God, he was a big
Give me a kiss,
douchebag.
princess.
You look good from this angle, princess.
All right, so let's move
Good
on.
example of a TV show adaptation. Pokemon. Bad example. Zelda. My princess is.
Hey, I think it's perfectly acceptable for a princess to be British.
It is, but Zelda's not British. That I know of. I mean, I've never. That's true.
Well, when was the last time you talked to a Hylian?
Yeah. Never. So
Okay,
there.
then. So let's
I
go on.
spoke to one in a video game once.
Okay, so Keith, how about you? Closing words.
Closing words is pretty much as you need to find somebody that loves the mythology, somebody who honestly, truly loves the series, not some backwards ass person trying to make money or they kind of got
Yes.
pawned.
I was
Pretty
just saying, yeah, I was just agreeing.
Exactly. I'm just reiterating what you were saying as well, but pretty much is that they need somebody that has very, very great passion for it. It can't be something that was pushed off to you for this in particular for it. One thing that I really, really would like to kind of make reference to on it, and God strike me down for saying it, is kind of like what Game of Thrones does. Is that a Song of Ice and Fire is the
God
own
strike
series
me
for it. However, is that these people that made a Game of Thrones took these key events and they have such great love for the story and the background for everything that this is how they were able to develop it into this huge phenomenon. If they could find somebody like that for, even like you were saying, Emily, for The Legend of Zelda that just has this great love and compassion and just wants to proclaim Zelda or whatever it is that they want to show on screen, that's all I ask for. That's all.
Exactly. At least just make the effort to know what it is that made it popular in the first place. Not just create a show for the sake of the fact that the video game is popular. It's like if you're going, like, they're making God of War into an actual movie. And given the fact that I am a huge fan of God of War, I'm scared. Because I don't know what's going to happen. So whenever I hear that...
All right. Well, how about you, Mark? Your final
I had
parting
more to
words.
say, but...
In general, I would say the only piece of advice that I can give that has not been given is to all Western animators, don't. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, my parting words is a little bit
Oh,
nicer than Mark's. So I just want to say, please don't make another Donkey Kong Country, or I will find you. I will kill you where you sleep.
I will
Not very
hunt you to
nice.
the ends of the earth.
That is all I'm going to say. So, from all of us here at GVN Live, I want to thank Jamillion, Gamer Keith, and Mark B. Writing for joining me once again tonight. I want to thank everybody in the audience for being very lively. Thank you for joining us tonight. Our next show is going to be August 7th. Excuse me, clearing my throat.
There we go.
So August 7th.
so I thought they were making a God of War movie, but I think I'm wrong.
Okay.
Or
Next
at
up.
least they were, but maybe it was canceled.
All right, next up on the GVN schedule is this Wednesday. We are going to conclude the original versus remake month with Mr. Mark B. Writing here joining me as we play both the original Tomb Raider and Tomb Raider Anniversary Edition. So, you looking forward to that, Mark?
I mean, I'm kind of sore right now. Maybe ask me in a couple of days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what we're going to be doing Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on this channel, followed by another 3 Vets and a Noob on Thursday at 9 p.m. right here, Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst Adventures. 2-hour show of comedy, camaraderie, and just fun. So I want to thank everybody for showing up, and you all have a wonderful night. Peace.
Take it easy, everybody.
Yay, thanks, bye.